The detention center's emergency lights cast blood-red shadows across the twisted metal where Cell Block 7 used to stand. Commander Vexthal of the Hegemony Fleet adjusted his 4 eyes to better survey the destruction, his mandibles clicking in barely contained fury. 37 of his best soldiers lay scattered across the debris field like broken toys, their advanced combat armor split open as if made of paper. Impossible, he hissed through his translator unit, the electronic voice crackling with static. One human female did this. His aide, a nervous Krell named Sithmar, consulted his datapad with trembling claws. According to the security feeds, yes, sir. Subject designation Sarah Chun, age 26, human military background. She was unconscious when we brought her in, standard neural suppressor in place. The readings showed complete nervous system shutdown. Vexthal examined the blast pattern carved into the reinforced walls. The metal hadn't been cut or melted. It looked torn, as if something had reached into the molecular structure and simply convinced the atoms to let go of each other. Neural suppressor malfunction? Negative, Commander. All systems showed green until... Sithmar's voice trailed off as he scrolled through the data. Until they didn't. Everything just stopped working at once. Neural suppressor, containment field, even the backup power grid. All simultaneously. The Hegemony had conquered 47 species across 12 star systems. Their detention facilities had held warriors from the crystal-shielded Zephyrians, the phase-shifting Umbral, even the notoriously escape-prone stellar nomads. None had ever managed to break free from a level 9 containment cell. The technology was foolproof, tested against every known form of resistance in the galaxy. But they had never tested it against a human. Vexthal stepped carefully around the corpse of Security Chief Mordun, whose exoskeleton had been compressed into something resembling abstract art. The other bodies told a similar story. Whatever had killed them hadn't used weapons. The injuries looked almost surgical in their precision, as if each soldier had been disassembled by someone with intimate knowledge of their species' anatomy. Where is she now? Vexthal demanded. Sithmar's skin shifted to a pale blue, the Krell equivalent of breaking out in cold sweats. Unknown, sir. All tracking systems went offline during the incident. We have search teams combing the facility, but we've lost contact with Search Team Alpha. They were investigating the lower maintenance tunnels when their comm signals went dark. Search Team Beta reported strange energy readings before their transmissions cut out as well. Search Team Gamma. Sithmar paused, checking his screen again. Search Team Gamma just missed their hourly check-in. Vexthal felt a chill run down his spinal ridge. 3 full squads of elite Hegemony hunters, each equipped with enough firepower to level a city block, and this human was picking them off one by one. How was that possible? According to their intelligence files, humans were barely more advanced than the primitive Gorellians they'd conquered last year. Earth's technology was laughable, their weapons crude projectile-based systems that couldn't penetrate basic energy shielding. The preliminary invasion fleet had expected to subdue the entire planet within a solar cycle. Instead, they found themselves locked in a grinding war of attrition against an enemy that refused to follow the established rules of galactic warfare. Human soldiers didn't break when faced with superior technology. They didn't surrender when outgunned 50-1. They just kept fighting with a savage creativity that had shocked even the Hegemony's military analysts. Sarah Chun had been their prize catch, captured during a raid on a human resistance cell. The intelligence value of a living human commander would be immense. The High Council had specifically ordered her taken alive for interrogation and study. Understanding how humans thought, how they organized their desperate resistance, could provide the key to finally breaking their species. Now Vexthal was beginning to wonder if they had made a terrible mistake. His communicator buzzed with an incoming transmission. Commander, this is Search Team Delta. We're investigating the communications hub where the lockdown originated. Sir, you need to see this. On my way, Vexthal replied, gesturing for Sithmar to follow. They made their way through corridors that had been pristine when he'd arrived that morning. Now blast marks and claw gouges scored the walls, and several sections were completely without power. Emergency lighting flickered unpredictably, casting dancing shadows that made every corner a potential ambush point. The communications hub sat at the heart of the facility, a high-security nerve center that controlled everything from life support to the automated defense grid. When they arrived, Vexthal found Team Delta standing in a semicircle around the primary control console, their weapons drawn but lowered. "Report," he commanded. Sergeant Clixtal, a veteran hegemony warrior whose purple carapace bore the scars of a dozen campaigns, gestured helplessly at the console. "Sir, she was here." The human was definitely here. But look at this. The control interface, normally a smooth panel of responsive smart glass, had been reconfigured into something that hurt to look at. Symbols and patterns flowed across its surface in configurations that seemed to shift when observed directly. The writing wasn't in any language Vexthal recognized, and yet somehow his mind insisted on trying to interpret the meaning, creating a disorienting sensation like intellectual vertigo. "She reprogrammed our systems?" he asked. "That's just it, sir. We don't think she used the interface at all. Watch this." Clixtal approached the console and reached out to touch the surface. The moment his claw made contact, the symbols flared brighter, and his arm jerked back as if he'd been shocked. "The system won't respond to us anymore. It's like the entire network has been infected with something that actively rejects hegemony technology." Sithmar stepped forward, datapad in hand. "Commander, I'm detecting massive irregularities in the quantum substrate that underlies our computational matrix. Whatever the human did here, it's spreading through the facility's network like a virus. But it's not a conventional virus. It's rewriting the fundamental operating principles of our technology." Vexthal stared at the impossible display. "How long until it reaches the main fleet?" "If the propagation rate remains constant, approximately 6 hours until it reaches the orbital command station. After that," Sithmar's color shifted to an alarming shade of yellow. "After that, it could potentially spread to every hegemony vessel in the system." The implications hit Vexthal like a physical blow. Their entire invasion force, hundreds of ships, and thousands of warriors, suddenly vulnerable to whatever incomprehensible power this one human female had unleashed. The High Council would demand explanations, and failure on this scale would likely result in his execution. Unless he could stop her first. "Seal the facility," he ordered. "No one enters or leaves. Bring in the special weapons teams for the orbital platform, and contact the Psych Division. I want every expert we have on human behavior down here within the hour." As his subordinates scrambled to carry out his commands, Vexthal remained staring at the corrupted console. Somewhere in this facility, a single human was systematically dismantling everything the hegemony had built. She was turning their own technology against them with methods that shouldn't exist, using capabilities that human science couldn't possibly possess. The red emergency lights continued their hypnotic pulse, and, in their rhythm, Vexthal thought he could detect something like a heartbeat. Slow, steady, and utterly alien despite coming from what should have been the most primitive species in the galaxy. He was beginning to understand why the humans called their world Earth. It wasn't just a name. It was a warning. Dr. Thalassa had studied over 40 different species during her career with the Hegemony Psychological Division, but she had never encountered a mind quite like the one she was tracking through the detention facility's corridors. The portable neural scanner in her four-armed grip hummed quietly as it followed the psychic residue left by the escaped human, painting impossible readings across its display screen. "The pattern makes no sense," she muttered to Commander Vexthal, who was leading their expanded search party through the facility's maze-like lower levels. "Human brain scans show they should be barely capable of basic tool use. Limited neural pathways, primitive emotional regulation, almost no psychic potential whatsoever. But these readings..." She gestured at her scanner with two of her arms while keeping the other two steady on the device. "These readings suggest something operating at levels we've only seen in the ancient architect ruins." Vexthal's mandibles clicked impatiently. "Explain it in terms I can use, Doctor. Think of the mind as a river, Commander. Most species flow in predictable channels, even the powerful ones. The Zephyrians flow like a rushing torrent, but in straight lines. The umbral phase shifters create whirlpools and eddies, but still within normal parameters. This human, her mind doesn't flow like water at all. It flows like liquid fire, carving new channels through reality itself. Behind them, Two full squads of elite warriors moved in perfect formation, their weapons powered and ready. Each soldier wore the latest in hegemony combat armor, equipped with energy shields capable of deflecting starship weapons. They'd also been injected with combat stimulants that increased their reaction speed by a factor of 5 and enhanced their strength enough to punch through solid metal. None of it made Thalassa feel particularly safe. They were following a trail of disabled security systems and mysteriously malfunctioning equipment. Every few dozen meters, they'd encounter another piece of hegemony technology that had simply stopped working. Not destroyed, not damaged, just converted to some other purpose that defied easy categorization. "Contact," whispered Sergeant Crixmal through the comm system. He was leading the advanced squad, his sensor equipment mapping the corridors ahead. "I'm detecting movement in Section C7. Faint energy signature, but it's definitely organic. Close in, but maintain defensive formation," Vexthal commanded. "Remember, the High Council wants her alive." Thalassa watched her scanner as they approached the indicated section. The psychic residue was growing stronger, more complex. Whatever the human was doing, it was intensifying. "Commander, I'm reading massive neural activity. It's like she's interfacing directly with the facility's computer systems, but that should be impossible. Humans don't have the biological hardware for technopathic abilities." They rounded the corner into Section C7 and found themselves in what had once been a standard maintenance bay. Now it looked like the inside of some vast organism. Cables and conduits had been reshaped into flowing, organic curves that pulsed with soft bioluminescent light. The walls themselves seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting in a rhythm that matched a resting heartbeat. At the center of it all sat Sarah Chun. She was cross-legged on the floor, her eyes closed, her hands resting palms up on her knees. She looked perfectly peaceful, almost meditative. Around her, streams of data flowed through the air like visible light, connecting her to access ports that had reshaped themselves to accommodate organic interface. The neural suppressor that should have kept her unconscious lay beside her in pieces, its components scattered like flower petals. "Target acquired," Crixmal reported softly. "She appears to be in some kind of trance state." "Careful," Thalassa warned. "The neural readings are off the charts. Whatever she's doing, it's requiring enormous amounts of mental energy." Vexthal signaled for his troops to spread out, surrounding the human at a respectful distance. "Sarah Chun," he called out, his translator unit broadcasting in the human language called English. "You are surrounded. Submit to containment, and you will not be harmed." The human's eyes opened. Thalassa's scanner exploded in a shower of sparks as Sarah Chun looked directly at her. The doctor stumbled backward, her forearms clutching at her head as an alien presence touched the edges of her consciousness. For just a moment, she felt the vast weight of something impossibly ancient and powerful, something that had been sleeping in the depths of human genetic memory for countless millennia. "You wanted to study us," Sarah said, rising to her feet with fluid grace. Her voice was calm, conversational, but somehow it seemed to come from everywhere at once. "You wanted to understand what makes humans tick. Well, here's your first lesson." The lights went out. In the darkness, Thalassa heard the distinctive whine of charging weapons, followed immediately by the sharp reports of energy discharge. Muzzle flashes lit the bay in strobing snapshots, revealing glimpses of chaos. Soldiers spinning and firing at targets that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. Equipment sparking and failing. And through it all, the human woman moved like she was dancing, untouchable and serene. "She's not where she should be." Crixmal's voice crackled over the comm. "Targeting systems can't lock on. It's like she's phasing in and out of normal space." "Impossible," Vexthal snarled. "Humans don't have phase shift abilities." The lights flickered back on, revealing a scene that would haunt Thalassa's dreams for the rest of her life. Half the soldiers were unconscious, their armor systems displaying critical failure warnings. The others stood frozen in place, their weapons lowered, their faces displaying expressions of dazed confusion. They were alive, but something in their eyes had changed. They looked enlightened, like they had seen something that fundamentally altered their understanding of the universe. Sarah Chun stood exactly where she had before, as if she had never moved. "You're thinking too small," she said, addressing Vexthal directly. You see humans as just another primitive species to be conquered and cataloged. You don't understand what we really are. What are you? Thalassa found herself asking, her scientific curiosity overwhelming her fear. Sarah smiled, and for a moment her appearance seemed to shimmer, as if she was not entirely present in normal space. We're the ones who were left behind to guard this galaxy until the architects return. We're the failsafe they built into reality itself. And you just triggered our activation sequence. The converted soldiers turned toward their former commander, their movements synchronized like parts of a single organism. Vexthal backed away, his own weapon raised but clearly uncertain about firing on his own troops. "This is not possible," he whispered. "Our intelligence reports showed humans were pre-space flight, barely technologically advanced." "You can't be. We were never meant to advance," Sarah interrupted. "We were meant to appear primitive, harmless, until someone threatened the cosmic order. Until someone like the hegemony decided to conquer everything they could find." She gestured at the transformed maintenance bay around her. "Your technology isn't being destroyed, Commander. It's being liberated, returned to its original purpose." Thalassa's professional training finally overcame her shock. "The readings I took earlier, the psychic pattern that matched the architect ruins. You're connected to them somehow. We are them, in a way. Or rather, we're what they became when they chose to integrate with the quantum substrate of reality itself. They didn't disappear, Doctor. They just stopped existing in ways that limited minds could perceive." Sarah's expression grew sad. "We hoped we'd never need to wake up. We hoped the galaxy would learn to govern itself peacefully. But the hegemony changed that," Vexthal said, his voice hollow with growing understanding. "The hegemony is exactly the kind of threat we were designed to counter. An aggressive, expansionist empire that seeks to dominate rather than cooperate. The moment your fleet entered our solar system, proximity alarms that have been sleeping in human DNA for 1,000,000 years started going off." The converted soldiers stepped aside, clearing a path between Sarah and the command group. She walked forward slowly, her movements rippling with barely contained energy. "Here's what's going to happen," she said. "You're going to return to your fleet and deliver a message to your High Council. The quarantine zone around Earth is now active. Any hegemony vessel that comes within 50 light years of our system will find their technology transformed, their crews enlightened, their military capabilities redirected toward more constructive purposes. You're threatening the entire hegemony fleet," Vexthal demanded. "I'm offering them a choice," Sarah replied. "Evolution or extinction. The architects built us to be teachers as well as guardians. We can show your species how to transcend their limitations, how to become something greater than just another empire built on conquest and domination." She stopped just out of arm's reach, and Thalassa could see that the human's eyes now held depths that seemed to stretch into infinity. "But if you choose to continue down the path of aggression, if you insist on treating the galaxy as your personal conquest, then we'll do what we were designed to do. We'll return your technology to its original form, before your species learn to pervert it for warfare. We'll reduce your mighty fleet to its component atoms and let the universe start over with something better." The transformation was spreading. Even as Sarah spoke, Thalassa could feel something changing in her own mind. Not control, not domination, but a gradual opening of awareness to possibilities she had never imagined. It was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. "The choice is yours," Sarah said. "But make it quickly. More of us are waking up every hour." Admiral Zekthrews of the Hegemony Grand Fleet had conquered more worlds than he could remember, but he had never received a report quite like the one Commander Vexthal was delivering from the detention facility. The holographic display in his command chamber showed the facility's status boards, most of which were now displaying symbols that his ship's computer couldn't interpret. "Let me understand this correctly, Commander," Zekthrews said, his massive bulk shifting in the command throne that had been specially constructed to accommodate his Titan-class physiology. "A single human female has not only escaped from a level 9 containment cell, but has somehow converted 30% of your facility into—" He paused, consulting his datapad. "What exactly has she converted it into?" "We're not entirely sure, sir," Vexthal admitted through the comm link, his image flickering slightly as some kind of interference disrupted the transmission. Dr. Thalassa believes the human is interfacing directly with our technology at a quantum level, rewriting its fundamental operating parameters. The affected systems still function, but they no longer respond to hegemony command protocols. And our soldiers? Those who have been exposed to the human's influence are alive and unharmed, but they've been changed. They no longer acknowledge hegemony authority. They speak of serving some higher purpose, something they call the restoration protocol. Zekthru's felt a chill run through his armored carapace. In 3 centuries of military service, he had never encountered an enemy capable of turning hegemony troops without violence, without technology, without any recognizable form of coercion. How many of our people are affected? Approximately 200 personnel, sir, and the number is growing. Anyone who spends more than a few minutes in the transformed sections begins to show signs of conversion. Dr. Thalassa has theorized that the human is broadcasting some kind of psychic field that fundamentally alters brain chemistry. The Admiral's tactical computer chimed with an incoming priority message. Admiral, his aide announced, we're receiving reports from across the fleet. Multiple ships are reporting system anomalies. Engineering crews are finding equipment that has spontaneously reconfigured itself. And, sir, we've lost contact with the scout ship Predator's Edge. Their last transmission was a request to investigate some kind of energy signature near the third moon. Zekthru's activated his fleet-wide communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Zekthru's. Implement Protocol 7 immediately. Full quarantine of the human homeworld. No ship approaches within 10 million kilometers without my direct authorization. Sir, his aide said quietly, Protocol 7 requires approval from the High Council. The High Council isn't dealing with this situation firsthand, Zekthru's replied grimly. I am. Send a priority burst transmission to Hegemony Central Command. Full tactical briefing. Tell them we have encountered a species that may pose a direct threat to hegemony technology itself. As his crew scrambled to implement the quarantine order, Zekthru's studied the tactical displays showing Earth and its immediate vicinity. The planet looked deceptively peaceful, a blue-green marble hanging in space with no obvious defenses. Long-range scans had confirmed human technological capabilities were centuries behind standard hegemony equipment. Their most powerful weapons were chemical-based projectiles and primitive nuclear devices. Their spacecraft could barely reach their own moon. Yet somehow, one human had crippled a state-of-the-art detention facility and was apparently spreading some kind of technological infection throughout his fleet. Admiral, Commander Vexthal's voice crackled through the comm system again. The human has made a request. She wishes to speak with you directly. Absolutely not. Maintain quarantine protocols and prepare for emergency extraction of all remaining personnel. Sir, with respect, I don't think we have a choice. The transformation effect is accelerating. My entire facility will be converted within the next few hours. And sir, I think she's been listening to our communications. The main display screen flickered, and suddenly, Sarah Chen's face appeared, looking directly at Zekthru's with eyes that seemed to hold the depth of space itself. Hello, Admiral, she said, her voice carrying clearly despite the fact that no communication channel had been established. My name is Sarah Chun, and I believe we need to talk. Zekthru's combat instinct screamed at him to cut the transmission, but his tactical training recognized an intelligence opportunity when he saw one. How are you accessing our communication systems? The same way I'm accessing everything else, Sarah replied. Your technology isn't as foreign to us as you think. In fact, most of what you call hegemony innovation is actually based on principles we've been hiding in plain sight for millennia. Quantum field manipulation, faster-than-light communication, even your basic energy production systems. They're all variations on technologies the architects left behind. Impossible. Our scientists developed these technologies independently over thousands of years. Sarah's expression was patient, almost sympathetic. Admiral, have you ever wondered why technological development seems to follow similar patterns across different species? Why quantum mechanics works the same way for the Krell as it does for the Zephyrians? Why faster-than-light travel uses almost identical principles regardless of who discovers it? The question hit Zekthru's like a physical blow. It was something that had puzzled hegemony scientists for generations. The mathematical constants that governed advanced physics appeared to be universal, but they also seemed almost artificially designed to lead developing civilizations down specific technological paths. The architects didn't just disappear, Sarah continued. They embedded themselves into the quantum substrate of reality itself. Every equation your scientists discover, every technological breakthrough your engineers achieve, they're all following patterns that were established millions of years ago. The architects wanted to make sure that any species capable of achieving spaceflight would eventually develop the tools necessary for the next stage of evolution. What next stage? Integration, Admiral. The merging of consciousness with the quantum field that underlies all matter and energy. The transformation from biological entities limited by physics into something that can exist at multiple dimensional levels simultaneously. On the tactical display, Zekthrews could see energy readings spiking throughout his fleet. Ships that had been running routine operations were suddenly generating massive quantum field fluctuations. His engineering officers were reporting that critical systems were operating far beyond their design parameters, but somehow more efficiently than ever before. "You're doing this," he accused. "We're offering your crews a choice," Sarah corrected. "The same choice we've offered to every species that has developed spaceflight. You can continue to use technology as a tool for domination and conquest, or you can learn to integrate with it, to become partners with the universe itself, rather than just consumers of its resources. And if we refuse?" Sarah's expression grew sad. "Then you'll discover why the hegemony has never encountered any species more advanced than yourselves. We've been here all along, Admiral. Every time a civilization chooses conquest over cooperation, every time they decide that might makes right, they encounter us. And they learn that there are some lines you don't cross." The tactical display suddenly filled with new contacts. Hundreds of them, appearing out of nowhere throughout the hegemony fleet's formation. But these weren't ships in any conventional sense. They were geometric patterns of pure energy, each one larger than Zekthrews' flagship, moving in ways that defied every law of physics he understood. "What are those?" "Those are my brothers and sisters," Sarah replied. "Other humans who have completed the integration process. They've been sleeping in quantum space, waiting for the day when they might be needed. Your invasion fleet just provided the wake-up call." Zekthrews activated his weapons systems, but the targeting computers couldn't lock onto the energy beings. They existed in a state that was simultaneously physical and non-physical, solid enough to register on sensors, but too ethereal for conventional weapons to affect. "This is not possible," he whispered. "Admiral, you're thinking like a conqueror instead of like an explorer. The universe is vast and full of wonders beyond your current understanding. The hegemony has spent centuries trying to impose order on the galaxy through force, but you've been missing the point entirely. The galaxy doesn't need to be conquered. It needs to be transcended." One of the energy beings moved close to Zekthrews' flagship, and suddenly the Admiral could feel a presence in his mind. Not invasive, not controlling, but offering, like a doorway opening to a room filled with infinite possibilities. "We can show you how to move beyond the limitations of biological existence," Sarah said. "How to expand your consciousness across multiple dimensional planes, how to interface directly with the quantum fields that govern reality. You could become explorers of infinity instead of conquerors of finite resources." The presence in his mind was intoxicating. Zekthrews could sense the vast knowledge that lay just beyond his current perception, scientific discoveries that would make the hegemony's technology look like stone tools, artistic expressions that existed in dimensions he couldn't even imagine. "But," Sarah continued, and her voice carried a note of steel, "if you choose to continue down the path of aggression, if you insist on treating other civilizations as resources to be exploited, then we'll do what we've always done. We'll reset the equation. Your fleet will be disassembled at the molecular level, your empire will be reduced to its component atoms, and the universe will start over with species that show more promise." The energy being near his ship pulsed brighter, and Zekthrews felt his weapons systems shifting, transforming into something he didn't recognize but somehow understood. They were no longer weapons of destruction. They had become tools of creation, capable of reshaping matter and energy in ways that could heal worlds instead of destroying them. "The choice is yours, Admiral," Sarah said. evolution or extinction. But choose quickly. Time is running out. High Chancellor Mordak of the Hegemony Supreme Council had lived for over 800 years and had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. None had prepared him for the emergency session that was now unfolding in the Great Chamber of Worlds, where representatives from 47 conquered species sat in stunned silence as Admiral Zekthrews delivered his report via quantum transmission from the human solar system. Repeat that last part, Admiral, Mordak commanded, his ancient voice echoing through the vast chamber. You claim the human technology is more advanced than our own? Not more advanced, Chancellor, came Zekthrews' reply, his image flickering on the massive holographic display. Ancient. Impossibly ancient. According to the human-designated Sarah Chun, their species has been serving as guardians of this galaxy for over 1,000,000 years. They've been deliberately maintaining the appearance of primitive development while secretly guiding the technological evolution of every spacefaring species. Counselor Vithran of the Krell Scientific Division leaned forward in his hover seat. That's preposterous. Our archaeological teams have found no evidence of advanced human civilization predating their current technological level. Their oldest structures are made of stone and metal. Because they don't need structures, Zekthrews continued. Chancellor, I've witnessed technologies that shouldn't exist. Matter-to-energy conversion at the quantum level. Consciousness transfer between biological and digital substrates. Manipulation of space-time geometry that makes our fastest ships look like ancient chemical rockets. They're not using technology the way we understand it. They've integrated with it. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of voices as representatives from different species began arguing in dozens of different languages. Mordak allowed the chaos to continue for precisely 30 seconds before activating the sonic dampening field that rendered further discussion impossible. Order, he commanded. Admiral, what is the current status of your fleet? 43 vessels have undergone what the humans call technological liberation. Their crews report that their equipment is operating at efficiencies we previously thought impossible, but they no longer respond to hegemony command protocols. The affected ships have taken up defensive positions around Earth and are refusing all orders to withdraw. Refusing orders? That's mutiny. Open fire on them. I've tried, Chancellor. Our weapons won't lock onto them. More than that, any ship that approaches within 50,000 kilometers begins to experience the same technological transformation. We've lost operational control of more than half the invasion fleet. Counselor Isikatar of the Umbral Military Council materialized more solidly in his chair, his face-shifted form becoming visible to the other representatives. What you're describing sounds like some form of technological plague. How we consider the possibility that this is a bioweapon designed specifically to target hegemony systems. It's not a weapon, Zekthrews replied. At least, not in any conventional sense. The human Sarah Chun has been very clear about their intentions. They're offering what they call transcendence, the opportunity to evolve beyond our current limitations. But they've also made it clear that continued aggressive expansion will be met with complete annihilation. Mordak felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. In 8 centuries of life, he had never encountered a situation where the hegemony's overwhelming technological superiority was not only irrelevant, but potentially counterproductive. What exactly are they proposing? Integration, Chancellor. The merging of biological consciousness with quantum field structures that exist at multiple dimensional levels simultaneously. According to their explanation, this would allow our species to transcend the limitations of physical existence while retaining individual identity and purpose. And the alternative? Complete molecular disassembly. Not just of our fleet, but of every hegemony installation in the galaxy. They claim to have the power to reset our technological development to pre-space flight levels. Based on what I've observed, I believe they have that capability. The silence that followed was deafening. 47 different species, each one conquered and integrated into the hegemony through superior firepower and advanced technology, all suddenly confronted with the possibility that their conquerors were themselves being conquered by something far beyond their understanding. There's more, Zekthrews continued. The humans have provided us with historical records, archaeological evidence that we've apparently been overlooking for centuries. Every advanced civilization that has ever disappeared from the galaxy, From the crystal cities of Nexus Prime to the void temples of the Outer Rim, they were all offered the same choice: integration or extinction. Counselor Thelme of the Zephyrian Cultural Preservation Society activated her translator. Are you saying that all of the ancient ruins we've discovered, all of the so-called lost civilizations, they chose extinction? No, Zekthru's replied, and his voice carried a note of wonder. They chose integration. They're all still here, Chancellor. Every single advanced civilization in galactic history. They've just evolved beyond the need for physical infrastructure. They exist in quantum space now, as pure consciousness interfaced with the fundamental forces of reality itself. The implications hit Mordak like a physical blow. The hegemony's entire expansion had been based on the assumption that they were the most advanced civilization in the galaxy, that their destiny was to bring order to the chaos of primitive species scattered across thousands of worlds. But if the humans were telling the truth, if every truly advanced civilization had transcended physical existence altogether, then the hegemony was nothing more than children playing with toys they didn't understand. Chancellor, Admiral Zekthru's voice carried a new urgency. I'm receiving reports from across the galaxy. Hegemony installations on 17 different worlds are experiencing similar technological transformations. It appears that humans exist throughout the galaxy, not just on their homeworld. They've been hiding among the populations of every species we've conquered, waiting for this moment. Impossible. Our genetic screening would have detected human DNA. Not if they've learned to exist in multiple genetic configurations simultaneously. Chancellor, we're not just dealing with one species here. We're dealing with the galactic immune system itself. Every time the hegemony conquered a new world, every time we imposed our will on a peaceful species, we were being cataloged and evaluated by an intelligence that spans the entire galaxy. Mordak's ancient mind struggled to process the scope of what Zekthru's was describing. How long do we have? The human Sarachan has given us 72 standard hours to make our decision. After that, if we haven't agreed to begin the integration process, they will initiate what they call the Great Reset. Every piece of hegemony technology in the galaxy will be returned to its base atomic components, and our species will be relocated to worlds appropriate for our current evolutionary level. That's genocidal. No, chancede. That's gardening. According to the humans, this galaxy has been under active management for millions of years. Species that show potential for peaceful development are nurtured and guided toward transcendence. Species that become aggressive and expansionist are pruned before they can spread beyond their home systems. Counselor Vithran's scientific curiosity overcame his fear. But we did spread beyond our home systems. The hegemony controls 47 star systems. Because they were testing us, Counselor. Every world we conquered, every species we subjugated, it was all being monitored and evaluated. They wanted to see if we could learn to govern responsibly, if we could evolve beyond the need for conquest and domination. Apparently, we failed the test. The Great Chamber fell silent again as the full weight of their situation became clear. The most powerful military force in known galactic history was nothing more than a laboratory experiment that had outlived its usefulness. There is one more thing, Zekthru's added, his voice now barely above a whisper. The humans have offered to demonstrate their capabilities. They're willing to show us what integration actually means, what we could become if we choose evolution over extinction. Demonstrate how. They've offered to temporarily integrate one of our representatives with their quantum consciousness network. A volunteer would maintain their individual identity, but gain access to the collective knowledge and capabilities of every civilization that has ever chosen transcendence. Mordak looked around the Great Chamber at the representatives of dozens of different species, all united in their shared terror and fascination. For 8 centuries, he had led the hegemony with absolute confidence in their superiority. Now he was being asked to make a decision that would determine the fate of every sentient being in the galaxy. The volunteer would retain their ability to return to their original form. According to Sarachan, yes. The demonstration is designed to show us what we're being offered, not to force the choice upon us. Mordak stood slowly, his ancient joints creaking with the effort. In 800 years of life, he had never faced a moment that would so completely define his legacy. Very well, he said. I volunteer to undergo this demonstration. The chamber erupted in protests and objections, but Mordak silenced them with a gesture. If I am to condemn our entire civilization to extinction or transformation, I will not do so in ignorance. Admiral Zek Thruz informed the humans that the High Chancellor of the Hegemony Supreme Council will accept their demonstration. Chancellor, are you certain? We have no guarantee that you'll survive the process. Admiral, we have no guarantee that any of us will survive the next 72 hours regardless. At least this way, we'll make an informed decision. As the session dissolved into chaos and emergency planning, Mordak stood in the center of it all, preparing himself for a journey that would either damn his species or save it. For the first time in 8 centuries, he felt truly alive. High Chancellor Mordak materialized in what could only be described as impossible space. He existed simultaneously in the quantum transport chamber aboard Admiral Zek Thruz's flagship, and in a realm of pure consciousness that stretched across multiple dimensions. His awareness had expanded beyond anything he could have imagined, yet his individual identity remained intact, like a single note in a vast symphony that somehow retained its unique character while harmonizing with infinite others. Sarah Chun stood before him, but she was no longer simply human. She existed as a confluence of energy and thought. Her consciousness interfaced with networks of knowledge that spanned millions of years and thousands of civilizations. Around them, other presences moved through the quantum substrate, each one representing a species that had chosen integration over extinction. "Welcome, Chancellor," Sarah said, her voice resonating through dimensions he couldn't name. "What you're experiencing now is the reality we've been offering your people. You still exist as Mordak, with all your memories, your personality, your individual will intact. But you've also gained access to the collective knowledge and capabilities of every civilization that has ever transcended physical limitations." Mordak tried to speak and discovered that communication here was thought itself, pure intention translated directly between consciousness without the clumsy intermediary of language. "This is overwhelming," he managed. "It becomes easier with practice," Sarah replied, her presence radiating patience and understanding. "Let me show you something that might help provide context." The space around them shifted, and suddenly Mordak could perceive the galaxy as it truly existed. Not the collection of star systems and planetary bodies he had known, but a living organism of unimaginable complexity. Streams of consciousness flowed between worlds like a circulatory system, carrying information, energy, and purpose. Every planet, every species, every individual life form was connected in a web of interaction that created something far greater than the sum of its parts. "The architects didn't disappear," Sarah explained. "They became this. They integrated their consciousness with the quantum field that underlies all matter and energy, becoming the gardeners of reality itself. Every law of physics, every mathematical constant, every principle that governs the behavior of matter and energy was carefully designed to guide developing civilizations toward this moment of choice." Mordak could see it now, the vast intelligence that had been shaping galactic development for eons. The hegemony hadn't discovered faster than light travel independently. They had been guided toward it, nudged along a path that would eventually lead them to this crossroads. Every species that achieved spaceflight was given the same test. Would they use their new capabilities for conquest and domination, or would they learn to transcend the limitations of physical existence altogether? "How many species have chosen integration?" he asked. "All of them." "Eventually," Sarah replied. "Some, like humanity, were chosen early to serve as active guardians, awakening when aggressive civilizations needed to be offered the choice. Others, like the Zephyrians or the Krell, were allowed to develop naturally until they reached the integration point on their own. The hegemony has been an interesting case study because you've lasted longer than most expansionist civilizations before triggering our intervention protocols. And those who refuse integration?" Sarah's presence grew sad. They returned to a pre-spaceflight developmental level and relocated to worlds appropriate for their current evolutionary stage. Their memories of advanced technology are edited, Their equipment is disassembled at the molecular level, and they're given another chance to develop along more peaceful lines. It's not cruelty, Chancellor. It's gardening. Mordak felt his awareness expanding even further, and suddenly he could perceive the scope of the choice facing his people. Integration would mean the end of the hegemony as a political entity, but it would also mean transcendence beyond anything they had ever imagined. They could become explorers of infinite dimensions, artists working with the raw materials of space and time, scientists capable of experimenting with alternate realities. What about those who aren't ready? He asked. Not everyone in the hegemony will be capable of making this transition. Integration is voluntary and gradual, Sarah explained. Those who choose to remain in physical form can continue to exist at their current developmental level while others explore transcendence. Over time, as they witness the capabilities and experiences of the integrated, most choose to join them. Those who never choose integration live full, meaningful lives and pass on naturally. Their choice is respected. The space around them shifted again, and Mordak found himself observing the hegemony fleet from a perspective that encompassed multiple dimensional planes simultaneously. He could see the ships that had undergone technological liberation, their crews working with equipment that had been freed from the artificial limitations imposed by hegemony engineering principles. The converted vessels were now operating at efficiencies that approached theoretical maximums, their crews experiencing a level of harmony between consciousness and technology that made traditional piloting look crude by comparison. Your people are already making the choice, Sarah observed. 43 ships and counting. Once they experience true integration between consciousness and technology, very few choose to return to the old limitations. And if I recommend that the hegemony accept integration, then we begin the transition gradually, starting with those who volunteer and expanding as others witness the benefits. Your political structure will evolve into something new, something based on consensus and shared consciousness rather than hierarchy and control. Your technology will be liberated to operate at its full potential. Your people will gain access to knowledge and capabilities that span millions of years of galactic civilization. And if I recommend refusal, Sarah's presence grew infinitely patient. Then we initiate the Great Reset. Every piece of hegemony technology in a galaxy is returned to its component atoms. Your people are relocated to worlds that match their current evolutionary level. All records of advanced technology are removed from their memories, and they're given another chance to develop along more peaceful lines. Mordak could feel the weight of the decision pressing upon him, not just for himself, but for every sentient being in the hegemony. Trillions of lives hanging in the balance, waiting for his recommendation. May I observe the integrated civilizations more closely? He asked. Of course. The quantum space around them filled with presences that defied description. Beings that had once been the crystalline architects, now existing as pure geometric consciousness that could manipulate matter and energy through focused intention. Former biological entities that had become living equations, their thoughts reshaping reality in accordance with mathematical principles that transcended three-dimensional physics. Collective intelligences that spanned entire star systems, their individual components linked in networks of shared experience that created new forms of art, science, and philosophy. And through it all, humanity served as guides and teachers, helping newly integrated civilizations adapt to their expanded capabilities while maintaining the individual characteristics that made each species unique. We don't lose what makes us who we are, Mordak realized. Evolution doesn't mean extinction of the previous form, Sarah confirmed. It means expanding beyond previous limitations while retaining everything that was valuable about the original state. You would still be Mordak, still carry the experiences and wisdom of 8 centuries of life. But you would also be capable of existing across multiple dimensional planes, of interfacing directly with the quantum fields that govern reality, of participating in projects and experiences that span thousands of years. Mordak felt his consciousness beginning to return to his physical body aboard the flagship, but the expanded awareness remained. He could still perceive the vast network of integrated civilizations, still feel the infinite possibilities that lay beyond the limitations of biological existence. I have seen enough, he said. Take me back to my people. What will you recommend, Chancellor? Sarah asked, as the quantum transport reversed itself. I will recommend that we choose evolution over extinction, Mordak replied. The hegemony as we have known it must end, but something far greater can take its place. And if your people disagree with your recommendation, Mordak felt his consciousness settling back into his physical form, 800 years of accumulated wisdom now expanded by experiences that spanned millions of years of galactic civilization. Then they will discover that there are some choices that transcend individual preference, he said. The universe itself has made this decision for us. We can adapt to it gracefully, or we can be adapted to it forcibly. But we cannot avoid it. As the transport completed, Mordak opened his eyes in the flagship's quantum chamber to find Admiral Zekthrews and a full medical team waiting anxiously for his return. Well, Chancellor, Zekthrews asked, what did you experience? Mordak stood slowly, feeling the weight of his physical form after the unlimited freedom of quantum existence. I experienced the future, Admiral, and it's far more beautiful than anything we could have imagined. He activated his communication system, broadcasting to every hegemony installation in the galaxy. To all citizens of the hegemony, he began, I am declaring an immediate cessation of all military operations and the beginning of our transition to a new phase of existence. What we have called conquest was actually evolution. What we have called empire was actually education. And what we're now being offered is graduation. The human Sarah Chun appeared on communication screens throughout the galaxy, her presence now radiating the infinite patience and wisdom of the integrated civilizations. Welcome to the greater galactic community, she said. Welcome to transcendence. And across thousands of worlds, billions of beings took their first steps toward becoming something more than they had ever dreamed possible.